One of the things I love about radio is the ability to develop a theater of the mind. Like right now, I can make it sound like I'm coming to you from my bathtub, utilizing some sound, a little bit of audio wizardry, especially if you're listening to this with headphones. While the thought of me in the bath may bring a shudder or a shiver through your body, it shows how effective and powerful a story can be and put you in a place in time. Historically speaking, I'm Matt Ryan, and this is Chapter 2 of our tale on the history of New York radio, more specifically talk radio. The power of the radio did not just extend to bringing you into these mythical spaces such as the make-believe ballroom.
Do you have that information for me?
What are you looking for, ma'am?
I'm looking for the, for WNEW, the make-believe ballroom.
Only a small room, make it your ballroom, let's dance.
Yeah, let me see. We have that located in 1934.
That's where we're keeping that now.
What's 1934? That's the station?
No, that's the year. All right, so you want to hear the program, the Make-Believe Ballroom?
Yes.
Some moist eyes out there. I see them.
No, I'm not being French.
I just want the make-believe ballroom. That's all I want to know.
I know. I'm going to be...
What do you think of President Roosevelt's New Deal?
The great, the one, the only, Benny Goodman, and that fabulous original band jumping at the Woodside.
What do you want to do, the foxtrot, ma'am?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Lindy.
The Lindy, sure.
He made it.
You practicing the old dance steps to...
I don't have to practice, honey. I know it.
Sure. Charleston? She's going back to the reunion, Fezzy, but she's all by herself.
I said we're going to have some boogie-woogie. Here it is, Ella Mae Morse, Freddie Slack at the piano, the Cow Boogie.
I just want the make-believe ballroom. That's all.
I just want to sit here with my hand on your knee.
You're fresh.
You want to rub my knee?
Yeah, slightly.
There.
Yeah.
All right, what are we going to do about Prohibition, though?
I want the make-believe ballroom.
Our opening number in this 45 was Charlie Barnett doing our theme. Our closing number, a bit of Cherokee, and, well, listen.
Johnson, I want the make-believe ballroom.
You heard her, Johnson.
Johnson!
You, bye.
But it'd be that, along with the great radio plays, like the radio version of It's a Wonderful Life, which aired annually when I was a kid on legacy station AM 710 WOR, which was also the radio home of Gene Shepard, a man whose style still carries over to shows like this, to utilize sound and the power of language to have you feel a part of or engrossed in a story. I'm not comparing myself to Mr. Shepard by any stretch of the imagination, but I will fully admit that I openly rip off his style, as does anyone who goes into the narrative word in front of a microphone beyond when we hit Radio 710. And while language and the written word have their place in radio outside of news, talk did not have a firm foothold beyond occasional weekend programming such as Shepard's or the talk-ups between records. But that doesn't mean there wasn't a revolution brewing, as in the 1960s one station would find itself, and then losing what it would make them to stand out in a crowded market. There will be a few constants in this series, mostly personalities, call letters, and axioms that most creative endeavors should take on. When it comes to the call letters WNEW, it will take up a decent amount of real estate this season. But so will the concept of executives and consultants being complete goofs. Now, not all of them across all walks of life are complete goofs, but there is rarely a radio executive or consultant that are not some of the most craven, vacuous, and insipid capitalist goons that you will ever come across. And I say this as a pseudo-member of the consulting class, but my consulting is usually on how to make things weirder, or within the world, making it more entertaining or sometimes violent. So, quite different than the live and local approach. Either way, during the 1960s, the fact that we had consultants on what to air on the radio, especially in the 1960s, the most creative period in American music that I could think of, makes me want to drink, cry, and fight a police horse. But that tends to be my mental state whenever in the midst of this foul fuckery known as the radio industrial complex. WNEW exists in three forms among people like me. The first being the venerable rock station that pioneered the format, the home for a hot talk melting pot that swinged wildly in terms of success and failures across a 5-year span, and then a station swinging wildly before and after the first two, trying to find any type of voice or construct that would resonate with an audience. Like Blink. Remember Blink?
WNEW, New York, 1027 Blink, the first FM station in New York to broadcast in high-definition radio.
New York City, I want you to get used to what I'm about to say, because Blink at 102.7 FM is on the air. Is that right, folks?
Anyway, what opened the door for WNEW actually began on competing WOR-FM. In 1966, WOR would give its disc jockeys a bit more freedom and the ability to play songs that would have some potential to break out if played on the station. At this time, WOR was the most prominent, if not the first, free-form rock station in New York for commercial radio, and featured legendary DJs such as Murray the K, Johnny Michaels, Roscoe, and an ex-Marine who was actually born Donald Allen Munoz in Wichita, Kansas, but would come to define everything great about rock and roll in radio and in New York City, Scott Muni. Muni, along with the others, ran with the station's new edict to play songs that may be outside the bounds of the 230 standard of the day on the radio's more prominent modulation, AM radio. That's the difference in amplitude versus frequency in terms of modulation. That's why AM and FM. I thought you should know that. I thought you should know that. But along with that was the issue of AM and FM. For WOR-FM was that RKO, yes, the same RKO owned by Howard Hughes of Spruce Moose fame, did not want to pay FM DJs the same as AM DJs, as it mattered which frequency you were on, but frequency bias seemingly was a thing in 1966. And when you think about it, all salaries and the concept of money is kind of bull. I would like to apologize again for my rampant disrespect for Mother Capitalism and all it has given us. Anyway, after a dispute between WOR-FM and AFTRA, the American Federation of Television and Radio Artists, back when radios had unions and union-mandated smoke breaks, the format would be kicked off on July 30th of 1966, and would not actually see the DJs actually go on the air with the exception of recorded promos until Saturday, October 8th, 1966, when the Trogs would usher in the next 35 years of chaos across the FM dial.
Okay, the Trogs there, and I can't control myself. That's their newest sounds. Remember the last one. I love you. Okay, Murray the K premieres 6 o'clock this evening on WOR-FM, 6 to midnight. At midnight, it's Roscoe Mercer. Okay, Roscoe, babe.
Hello, baby. Let's make Sunday a fun day. Sunday matinees at the Cheetah.
Yeah.
3 p.m., 4 big bands. Oh, the Cheetah's so fine. Gives you a swinging state of mind.
While the station was making money from record company advertisements due to the massive influx of college students in the city listening to the station, including one study that saw Columbia University undergrads listening to WOR-FM for 3.5 hours per day, double if not triple to what AM powerhouses WMCA and WABC were pulling, with 93% of the students now listening to FM alongside AM. Someone then just had to come in and piss on the fucking parade. Bill Drake, a radio consultant who developed the play the hits philosophy, where you spam music and the DJs just cue the records and remind you where to get groceries, had been brought in just a year into WOR's new concept. A concept, by the way, that saw Murray the K as the highest rated DJ in the market, in not only FM, but the whole medium, generating a .4 and a .3 share. Despite all of this positive momentum, despite all of this creativity and experimenting paying off financially and creatively for WOR, as we will see from time and time again in this story, some consultant had to get his fingers in the pie and make changes that only really made sense to them. Within 2 months of Drake's consulting across the RKO suite of stations across the United States, Murray the K would be fired after he and other jocks would refuse to play the music any other way than the way they wanted to play it. The tactics of Drake would not only see edicts about what versions of songs to play, but banning jocks from listening sessions, limiting playlist input, and putting other limitations on what made the station the most popular in the market. Not to be that guy again. If you're sitting there listening or watching this and wondering, why would you try to ruin a good thing when it's making you money and developing you in a young and sustainable audience? And not seeing how blatantly this play is ran again and again and again across all types of media. Can you give me some money to avoid the heat death of the content universe and make stuff like this that weird people want? Because this is... But soon after Murray the K would be fired in September of '67, fellow WOR DJs Scott Muni and Roscoe would quit WOR, with Roscoe doing it on the air on October 2nd of 1967.
Come and get these memories, Martha and the Vandellas. Yeah, I was just thinking that, to honor the many letters we've received on the program and the many phone conversations we've had, how is best to honor that? How is best to honor the respect that you have shown, the acknowledgement of letting us know that we were doing the right thing at WOR-FM? And I think the only way to honor that, the respect you've given us, is to respect you. I'm not going to use editorial we. I'm going to say I. The respect that you've given me. And the only way I can return that respect is to be consistently honest with you. And this is going to be my last night at WOR-FM. And it has nothing to do with RKO General, WOR-FM, the management that we started out with, but rather to do with a group of consultants who have come into WOR-FM, and what they're asking us to do, or what they're asking me to do. I feel that would be very disrespectful and dishonest to you, and in no way can I feel that I can continue my radio career by being dishonest with you. You show a lot of respect for me, and you have shown in the past by listening and letting me know that we're doing the right thing.
Their landing spot was one that would follow a similar track to what it would do for another collection of DJs just 31 years later, and that slowly changed its format to complement their hotshot and controversial DJs. That station, of course, being
WNEW .2.7 FM.
Patterns exist for a reason. Time is a flat circle. How the hell do we keep going back to the same point again and again and again? It feels like I'm living in the parking lot episode of Seinfeld. Did you ever notice that your life is a series of realizing we repeat the same patterns in culture and media to the point it feels like a fucking bit? I thought this season was going to be cathartic, but fuck me running. 5 days after quitting on the air, Roscoe joined fellow future revolutionary on the radio Pete Fornatal's Campus Caravan show on WFUV to explain why he quit WOR. Here now is some of that audio via the New York Radio Archive.
First of all, why I'm no longer at WOR-FM and why I resigned. I think I don't remember what I said, but I remember the feeling, and the feeling was how long are you going to remain here, being fighting something before fighting against something before you become a part of it, even subconsciously. And I decided that it should be now, and it happened to be that Monday night, saying that I no longer wanted to be a part of it, a part of a change that had taken place. And when I say feeling, it was emphasized more because when I remembered how we started out with management at WRFM, we started out a year ago, just about this time, October 8th,
which is tomorrow, right?
Mm-hmm, that's right. And when I remembered that, that made me just a little bit more emphatic about not wanting to remain a part of what we had changed into. The reasons for it, the reasons for the change, the only way I can put it is maybe perhaps as I said the other night, and as I've thought about it so many times, it was like being married to a very faithful woman, being WRFM management, the original concept and everything, being married to her, and then suddenly the playboy entered in, the third party or the pimp or whatever you want to call him, and he started romancing her and sold her a bill of goods. She has to be guilty for being affected by it, and surely the third party has to be completely guilty for even interfering with that particular household. Mm-hmm. So what do you do in a case like that? You have understanding for the faithful wife or the once faithful wife, but you certainly do object to the third party. Well, it's the third party, and specifically, I mean the consultants headed by, I think Bill Drake is president of the firm. And it should be explained because like so many things are happening in a particular station, and the public doesn't have time to really pay attention to the subtleties there, and the machinery, and all of the innuendos, so forth. So I think I should break it down. That WRFM is one separate entity. The consultants is another separate entity. In my opinion, they sold WRFM management a bill of goods, saying that we can make your station this, we can make this, and getting to the practical end of it, they said we could help you to realize, great revenue. Well, that's where I fault management for being sold on that, because we, in taking WRFM and taking an artistic approach, or I don't know whether that's the right word, artistic. I say an honest approach, and presenting to people a broad field to judge from, to get goodies from, or be entertained from. In doing that, we realized great commercial success, so that to be sold a bill of goods based on that argument, that we could increase your revenue, or we could give you a success that you never realized, is not quite valid.
WNEW management at Metro Media heard the interview between Fornatal and Roscoe and would decide to sign him to the station on October 18th, and then Alison Steele would announce Roscoe's first show would take place on October 30th during her October 29th radio show. Steele was, up until that point, a member of an all-female DJ staff that would primarily play middle-of-the-road music, trying to cater to seemingly an all-female demographic. With some of the hottest talent in the market now available, in a format that drew young ears and record company dollars, alongside Roscoe selling out his entire ad revenue in just under 2 months, it would only take until December 9th of 1967 for WNEW to abscond with its girls concept to become the new groove, announcing in the Village Voice on December 14th that Scott Muni would be joining 4 days later on December 18th. By 1969, Roscoe and the others at WNEW were treated as cultural and social figures in New York City, including this Times piece written about Roscoe on July 6, 1969. Roscoe, Fat, Free, and Sassy by Ellen Cohn Sunday, January 5th, 1969. Disc jockeys, almost by definition, have been faceless men cut from the same mold. They play the top 40 hits, interrupt records to blare commercials at fixed times, shout out weather reports, and break for the news. Any child over 5 could build one at home, mix equal parts of Tin Pan Alley, a tin ear, and the soul of a used car salesman. Behind the hollering about the golden oldies and the sound of solid gold, it's the tin horn who comes through loud and clear. Some disc jockeys have tried to break the mold and emerge as personality. Murray the K broke through as the quote-unquote fifth Beatle, and William B. Williams' persona is that of the middle-aged swinger who knows Frank Sinatra. Personality by association, that's how the cookie mold doesn't crumble. Can a disc jockey create an individual style and turn 5 hours of programming records into a personal statement with a point of view? Tune in tomorrow for Roscoe. For over a year, Roscoe has been the new groove of WNEW FM every night from 7 to midnight, Sunday until 11:35 p.m. He plays the new music and presents the sounds of now. Folk, soul, and a rock pile of adjectives are how most people describe the new music. Front page stories from Chicago and Prague, poetry from Moscow and San Francisco, or how Roscoe pronounces the sound now. At 38, Roscoe is well-built, good-looking, though the hairline has started to recede. He still moves with the pop tingle of the Pepsi generation. He's fat-free and sassy. The eyes don't miss a trick, sitting in what looks like a phone booth placed on its side, lighting a cigarette, searching through a stack of records, queuing up a selection, coolly switching from one turntable to another. He lays out musical thoughts, often stringing together as many as 5 different cuts without a break, all to make a point or to create an atmosphere. He arranges the order of commercials, linking them together to make them as part of the action. Even the news breaks seem to fall into place as if he planned it that way. It's what Roscoe's listeners expect. It's what he calls, as he opens the show, half come on, half put on, a mind excursion, a little diversion, a hip trip to reality. The 68 candidates and the 69 cars have all been a part of the trip, and the music and Roscoe's readings help soften the hard chrome finish on both. Once a night, Roscoe reads Gibran, Browning, Omar Khayyam, Poe, Yudashenko. His voice is warm, creamy, butterscotch syrup. The delivery is effortless, often imperfect. It implies intimacy, but not with superstars. Roscoe's bag is being intimate with the audience. The core of that audience is between the ages of 18 and 30. Sell them record, soft drinks, cars, and clothes. But tell it all, and tell it like it is. Sell them airlines to the Bahamas and airlift to the Biafrans. Sell them paper panties and peace parades. Watch out, America. The make-believe ballroom is strictly l'Ancien Regime. William Roscoe Mercer was born in New York City, spent a few years on the charity rolls of a Catholic boarding school in Pennsylvania, was a government clerk and hated it, and worked for 3 years as a men's room attendant at the Latin Casino in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. Oh, it's a fixture, an ornament. Then 10 years of sloshing through an alphabet soup of stations on both coasts. In 1966, he came east to WOR-FM. 1 year later, the staff began to receive corporate memos on what to play and when. With the word that open letter to a teenage son, a right-wing reactive for God, country, and Western civilization song had to be scheduled every 2 hours, Roscoe quit. He was not opposed to airing Victor Lundberg's conservative rhetoric, but he was opposed to playing it exclusively and on cue. A few weeks later, in November 1967, he was hired by WNEW-FM as his ratings rose from a 0 to a current estimate of 250,000 listeners a week. They began calling him a genius of communication. At this, Roscoe laughs, warm and wide open. Management says I'm a guru, that I have a mystique. It's just the opposite. I am so simple. I am just talking to a friend, man. I can't think of anything more fumbling, more stumbling, and more human than this show. I don't perform, I just present. Sometimes I leave the booth and get a drink of water, and it's like saying to a friend, hey, give me a ginger ale. Then you sip some more and talk some more. Roscoe talking, it's like his program. One thought flows into another, try to stop butterscotch syrup. He talks in paragraphs, in platforms. Man, I can't see a Johnny Carson sitting night after night after night and not giving something besides entertainment. He is the man in immediate control, and he plays it totally in the middle of the road. I can't see it. He's the cute little boy from next door who never gets a bloody nose, and he remains that way. Well, that isn't true about life. You do get a bloody nose. See, the FCC has granted you the privilege of broadcasting, and just sitting there is abusing and misusing communication. The media must help us to listen closely. If we don't constantly investigate, if we don't listen, we're dead as a society. Look at the Germans. When they got ready to say, where the hell is Hitler leading us, it was too late. We haven't reached that point yet, but there are those who are doing every damn thing to get us there. A Tuesday night, 8:29 p.m., Roscoe puts on a record by Chad and Jeremy. Cut is Fall, a collage of sound, slogans, speeches. We own 3/4 of all the automobiles in the world. We want peace between all people. Smoke longer. I wave consecutive translation. The accents are international. It ends with the bomb. Boom. Boom. Segue. Thaw, sickening lush. The Mormon Tabernacle Choir singing the Lord's Prayer. Roscoe comes in over the choir with the words of Yupashenko. How trifling for the present in this century is the price of human life. Under Picasso's dove, the world is everywhere at war. We die of coronaries or natural. We are killed in this war. Segue. Richie Haven singing Handsome Johnny. Here comes Handsome Johnny with an M15 in his hand marching to the Vietnam War. Song ends. From another studio down the hall, the crisp sounds go out. 62 degrees and cloudy at 9 o'clock. This is WNEW News Up to the Minute. President Johnson addressing, will not halt the bombing. The hip trip to reality. This past summer, Roscoe toured the city with Broadway in the streets and Operation Sound Search, 2 projects of Mayor Lindsay's urban task force. I'd MC and talk with people and laugh and goof. See to them, I'm a friend who's been to their homes. I say something to them musically and philosophically. I say ain't. I'm a human being. I'm not a celebrity. But he knows quite a few of them. On a recent Sunday night, the one night a week he tapes ahead, Roscoe and his wife Lillinor took over the Directory, an East Side discotheque, and gave a dusk till dawn party for about 300 people they like. The beautiful people were there. The Society page columnists were there. And it is said some people left Leonard Bernstein's party to come over there. Roscoe, his wife, and their 5-month-old daughter Melissa live in an apartment on West End Avenue. When Roscoe talks about Lillimore, a Swedish model, his melting voice dissolves a little more. I love her so much I could drink her. People say that's too good to be true, but they don't understand something. I have to control myself not to express my affection for others, not to pursue my other desires. See, I wallow in the love of my wife as a defense. I will not spoil the happiness I have at home. In Roscoe's system, black is no longer skin color, it's a lifestyle. Black is free, white is uptight. Marlon Brando is black to me as Martin Luther King. Senator Brooke is white. He's been accepted by the mainstream not because he's racially black, but because he's affluent. Get this, my father was black and my mother was white, and I've never heard them argue over race. Melissa will have no problems because Lillimore and I have no problems. We only argue about whether she can cook. We are not naive, but we refuse to let other people's prejudices interfere with us in our happiness. Sometimes when we walk down the street, someone will stare at us and Lillimore says they're staring at us because we're so beautiful together. We are beautiful. We're busy living. WNEW was the station that featured interviews with John Lennon and Yoko Ono. Was the station advertising Woodstock? Was the home of anti-war poems, stories, and screeds like The War by Pete Hamill during the darkest days of Vietnam, including this quote that can haunt all of us over a half a century later.
And so it appears, as we move into the 70s, that we have learned something about ourselves that is large and dark and final. We, all of us, sitting here in our small comforts, worrying about inflation in schools and the coming of winter, preparing for a night at the theater, swapping small talk at lunch, marrying and divorcing, wrapped in ourselves and our banalities. All of us must sleep tonight in the knowledge that we share in mass murder. Can we look deep into those photographs by Ronald Haverly of the Cleveland Plain Dealer and deny what they tell us? That girl with straight-clipped bangs. She is about 10 and terrified, hiding behind a shrunken woman.
By 1971, Muni would take over as the program director of WNEW and taking the mantle, or the face/voice more appropriately, of the station from Roscoe, as the man who was the first through the door on NEW would move to France for a 3-year reprieve from the United States. By this point, Muni had been the voice who had introduced America to the Beatles. That's right, he's that guy, was developing into an institution. And this moment, which even I, up until this episode, had confused with being the inspiration for Dog Day Afternoon, was where on October 6, 1975, Scott Muni answered the phone on WNEW, and on the other end was a man named Cat Olson, a Brooklynite who is currently in Lower Manhattan and robbing a bank.
I'm gonna turn it up, man. Fuck all this. All I hear is alarm. Listen.
Oh, God, you got a lot of noise. Can you hear anything?
Yeah. Stuck in Mobile with the Muppet Blues again, right?
Right.
It's a great song. That's where I am. Stuck inside a movie.
If you want to say something, anytime right now, because the tape is rolling, say what you want to say, right?
What about, I want to be able to hear myself also on the air.
You will hear yourself. When you hear yourself, I'll talk to you again.
Okay.
Okay? Wait about 5 seconds and then start talking. And then you're not going to hear right away. You're hearing music now. You're not going to hear right away.
Wait, and then I'll hear everything that I've said. And then we'll let the rest of these people go.
What I got to do is I got to do a tape because we're on the only line we can talk on.
Okay, so you're going to tape it and then play it over the air.
Right.
And when I hear it on the air, then I'll know everything is cool.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
When the statement finally came, it was not about politics and not about money, but about music.
First thing I want to say is I want to say hello to Jerry Garcia out there. I know Garcia's out there. And, all these years, man, you've been giving me music and I've been digging it and getting high right along with you on psychedelics and whatnot and, grooving along. Garcia, thank you. I want to say hi to Bob Weir, Jerry Garcia, Phil Less, the bass. Right now we're listening to Boxer Rain with Phil Less and it sounds great. And who else is out there? Let's see, we got Mickey Hart on percussion, we got Bill Kurtzman on drums, Mickey and Bill. And I want to say hello to Mickey and Bill. And we got Donna and Jean, the newcomers, man. God chalks them up, you bet. So we got Donna and Jean. And also, let's see, who else we got? Just blasting through the Dead family.
I just cut the microphone.
I guess I've covered the band. Pigpen is gone. And it was old TC who used to play on the old records. TC is somewhere else.
It's gone, you're right.
Right, Pigpen's gone. And then we can't forget Robert Hunter. We can't forget the lyricists. We can't forget Tales of the Great Rumrunners and Tiger Rose. I'd really like to hear a couple of cuts off those 2 albums. Something. Someone pick out almost any song on that record. The whole album is completely terrific. Any songs on those tracks are really great. So I'm just a dead man myself, I say on any night, the Grateful Dead are the best fucking rock and roll band in the entire world. There's not a better band than the Grateful Dead.
While WNEW and Scott Muni were developing the artistic, creative, and more progressive in terms of what commercial radio would deem progressive in New York City in the 1960s and 70s, there was a darker and more sinister edge developing, and it was careening into the airwaves with a drunken swagger of an Old West gunfighter, or an older brother looking for a voice in a world he didn't seem to fit into until now. By the time WNEW had launched their all-girls format and WOR had launched their progressive rock format in New York City, Donald John Imus Jr. had dropped out of high school, become a Marine, was fired from being a window dresser for performing stripteases with the mannequins, failed as a singer-songwriter with his brother Fred, another weird trend for shock jock DJs, was living in a laundromat in Hollywood, broke his back as a railroad brakeman, and then broke his legs in an Arizona uranium mine. And then just said fuck it and decided to get into radio to play his songs on the air for once. On June 2nd, 1968, after convincing a radio station owner he'd be as good, if not better than the morning DJ, he would go on the air at station KUTY, as Donald Imus had just become a radio show host. In less than 2 months, not only would Imus become the top jock in his market, but develop his soon-to-be iconic Billy Saul Hargis character. Soon after, he would move over to K-Joy in Stockton, California, where he would be fired for more than likely a radio stunt where he held an Eldridge Cleaver look-alike contest. Cleaver at the time was a prominent member of the Black Panther Party, and Imus was offering the winner the prize of being incarcerated for a year. Hack! Fucking hack! But that firing would find him in the capital of California, Sacramento, because people tend to find a way to fail up in this industry, and working with a guy named Jack Thayer. Thayer would later be known as the man who pioneered the concept of talk radio. With his suggestion for Imus to take on and develop characters for his on-air segments, it was clear that he was destined to help curate that form of talk radio. Thayer would not only help him with that advice and act as a mentor and a boss, but be on the other end of the line for the bit that put Don Imus on the map and on the road to New York City.
Morning, McDonald's. Hi, McDonald's hamburgers? Yes, it is. This is Sergeant Kirkland of the Air National Guard, and I'd like to get some lunches to go if I possibly could. We're not open for another 2 hours, sir. What time would it be? About 10 o'clock you'd open? About 10:30, sir. Yeah, well, I wondered if I can give the order now. I need quite a few, and stop by this afternoon and pick them up. Well, I'm just cleaning up. I'm the assistant manager. Maybe. Well, like to get, if I could, 1,200 hamburgers. 12? Pardon me, sir? 1,200 hamburgers is what we'd like to get. We got a troop movement scheduled, one with the local colleges, and like to just get some lunches to go. Just a moment. I'm going to have to ask my... could you hold on for a second? Yeah, Sergeant? Just a moment, sir. There's a guy here, the sergeant with the National Guard, and he wants 1,200 hamburgers. What should I do? Hello. Hello? Yeah, listen, what do you think? Well, we don't have enough meat or the buns for 1,200 hamburgers. Well, can't you get some from the other stores? I guess it's the government, you know. Yes, sir. I'll have to do that. I'll tell you what, why don't you just take the order and then get them as soon as you can, and I'll call you back in an hour or two, okay? That would be good, sir. All right, we need 1,200 hamburgers. Now, listen, on 300 of those, I want you to hold the mustard, but put on plenty of mayonnaise and lettuce. Yeah. And I don't want any onions on those. And on 200, when I make that 201, I want you to hold the mayo and lettuce, but lay on the mustard and make those medium rare. And if you, on the first 300, if you can cook 275 of those rare with onions and mustard and mayo and no lettuce. Rare. You got that so far? Yeah. No lettuce. And it's okay to hold the mustard on those either. And don't butter the buns on half of those, but put butter on about 134. Let's see, half of 275 be 134, right? And then half of that, make it butter on the buns. We'll make it butter on the buns for 135 with no mustard or lettuce or onions. Well, wait a minute. You can put lettuce on 3 of those and cook those medium well with no butter on the buns. And can we get some chocolate shakes for everybody? Hello? I'm in the morning.
That bit would be so influential that it would create an FCC rule that mandated every single time you are on the phone with someone, you must let them know you are on the air, which is basically what created the whole fake prank call thing. And as someone who was on the other side of some of those, it's just as much of a hack thing as you would think. Imus would not land in New York just yet, but he would find himself in Cleveland, where he followed Thayer, who took over WGAR in 1970, where more controversy, protests, and a third straight Billboard Award for Market Personality of the Year would follow Imus. But unlike the first two, it was no longer a medium-sized market, but a major market. And then in November of 1971, Imus would inform his Cleveland fans that he was on the move to WNBC.
Hello, everyone. This is Jack Thayer, General Manager of your radio station, the Big 1220 WGAR, with the success story of the year. After just 14 months in Cleveland, Don Imus of Imus in the Morning has received and accepted the challenge of taking over the morning show at NBC in New York City. Congratulations, Don. It's a great tribute to your talent, creativity, imagination, enthusiasm, and dedication. All of us at 1220 WGAR are very proud of you. Imus in the Morning added laughter to our Cleveland mornings, brightened our days with zany, fun-loving characters and phone calls. Imus in the Morning showed his concern with the 60-hour Life is Real marathon, Christmas greetings to our men overseas, the talking birthday card to President Nixon. And as reported in the Don Robertson column in the press, Don leaves at the end of this month to Brighton, Fun City. Thank you, Don Imus. All of Cleveland joins me in saying congratulations and the best of everything as your career really soars. You will always be number one with us.
Harry Bascom, the general manager of WNBC, as well as Pat Whitley, the program director, are very excited about this new talent. And I share their excitement because I've had the opportunity of talking to them off the air. I've heard some tapes that came from Cleveland, and I think this is one of the most sensational men in broadcasting today. And I'm very sure that you'll share my enthusiasm. It may seem like a long time before you hear Imus, but it'll be just a short time. Just about 5 minutes of the latest news. And then, the great Imus, I-M-U-S, will be with us. Listen. Don't miss it. Just keep that dial set right at 660, and be sure to have that switch in the on position. A great new talent that we're all going to be listening to today, and I hope that you do too. Good night.
This is WNBC New York. Stay tuned for Imus in the Morning.
Gambling, your gambling days are through. When it's raining, it's pouring. Here's Imus in the Morning.
Float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. All right. Thank you, Long John. Gus Share, Gypsies, Tramps, and Thieves.
Soon after landing in New York, he quickly lost sponsors like an Irish airline that no longer bought ad time on the station after Imus ended a commercial read claiming that Protestants had to fly coach, but would also be the home for burgeoning comedic talent like Lily Tomlin, who'd perform with Imus on the air. He'd also develop on-air quirks that followed him until his death, including the duck quack following the time that was being given out on the air, due to an audio engineer with a terrible attention span. All of that success in less than 5 years would, much like any other disc jockey in radio, one specifically I'm thinking of right now, would go from working in people's attics to being the guy heard by people working in attics. Imus would soon find himself lost in the literal sauce. And while there would be points where Imus missed over 100 days of work like he did in 1973, there would be the moments where he was in the middle of the cultural zeitgeist, like this feature from Life magazine in November of 1972. I'm Imus, I'm the best. Life magazine, November 3rd, 1972, by Richard Woodley. Imus in the Morning, the world's greatest disc jockey, glared at a friend over his lunch.
I didn't get to be numero uno by being a dummy, you know. Hell, I'm a star now. I'm recognized everywhere I go.
Which one of you guys is Imus? Asked the journalist who approached the tape. Last year, John Donald Imus Jr. won Billboard magazine's highest award for a disc jockey. Now just 4 years since he left his job as a railroad brakeman to go into radio, he is on the brink of stardom seldom achieved by radio personality. While disc jockeys are not as readily recognized as television stars on the street, the boss jocks of radio are kings, while they are on the air, virtually out of the control of station managers or program directors. Unlike television, radio is an immediate live medium. An obscenity or a fouled-up commercial may bring the program director scurrying into the studio to confront the jock, but the words have already gone out over the air. Among other things, the jocks can use this power to plug friends and down enemies, or to promote themselves to a degree unequaled by other media. Imus, top DJ at WNBC in New York, is an expert at this. Radio also lends itself to being crazy. All over the country, DJs sit in little isolation booths, cooing, cursing, clamoring into lifeless mics and imagined audiences. Their names may be household words in their local areas, but they perform in showbiz's solitary confinement. While there is a growing freedom in urban radio for DJs to say anything they want, most formats are tight, with but a few seconds between records, jingles, and commercials for the DJs to establish their personality. Saying shocking things is a good way to do it. Don Imus is good at saying shocking things. Imus did his first New York show last December, began attracting listeners and at times repelling them with his unrelenting sarcasm and wit of borderline taste. His irreverent comedy characters, his sassy independence, but it was impossible not to be intrigued by how intensely he displayed his ego, exposing it, leaving it vulnerable with such circus daring. Imus is an act, said one prominent station manager. His show mixes middle-of-the-road rock music with 6 outrageous character acts of his own. The Right Reverend Dr. Billy Saul Hargis, an evangelical huckster who will sell you anything in the name of God. Sin insurance, inflatable plastic pulpits, tasty sacred chickens, old-timer Crazy Bob who tells weird variants on classical fairy tales, Judge Hangin, the soft-drawing 100% American for whom police brutality is the fun part of law enforcement. Hi from Hollywood, the precious lisper who has news of Tinseltown from the pages of Screen Slime magazine. Imus in Washington, the David Brinkley sound-alike with news of the day, such as the removal from Shanghai Shek from Taiwan to form the first National Chinese Republic of Puerto Rico. And Brother Love, the sassy black preacher who advises women in the congregation on affairs of the body. Imus ridicules sponsors. WNBC lost the Irish Airlines account when Imus said Protestants have to ride coach. He calls the station manager Mr. Vicious, the program manager Mr. Numb. He said that a fellow DJ was at the twilight of a mediocre career. Woven through the show are trademarks, the deep, raspy, street black voice for "Are you naked?" The duck that goes quack quack every single time check. He talks on the air with listeners who call in, makes his own put-on phone calls all over the country. He hangs up regularly on bosses, journalists, fans, children. WNBC station manager Perry Bascom, hired 2.5 years ago to pull up the station's sagging rating, had searched the nation for a man to fill the prestigious, crucial 6 to 10 morning slot. As the morning goes, Bascom said, so goes the station. Morning is when you grab the big nuggets. He hired Imus for a salary nearly $100,000, and then revamped the entire personnel structure to build it around his controversial new man. At 6 o'clock one morning, Imus stepped out of an elevator near his studio in the RCA building, recognizable yet not quite what might have been expected. He has a strong face, but he is almost sallow. With pale eyes and a thin mouth, about 5'10", he has narrow sloping shoulders, a heavy midsection, and chunky legs encased in Levi's and cowboy boots. He ambles graciously with an aggressive but weary forward lean. Over one shoulder this morning was a mahogany-colored leather bag with gold buckles. In one freckled hand, he carried a black attaché case. On a wall in the newsroom adjacent to his studio was a huge betting pool calendar. For $1, you can take a chance on the next date Imus would miss work. The studio, set inside a large plate glass window through which tourists can gaze, contains both the DJ and his engineer facing each other across the console. Behind Imus is a tall, lazy Susan containing tape cartridges of older hits. To his left is a wire bin containing the newer 45 RPM single. The news was ending. He tossed 2 packs of cigarettes on the console for the engineer, threw up a right hand with a flourish to signal for the mic, and brought the show to life. The music pounded out underneath his raspy voice. All right, I'm Imus in the morning at 6:09, quack quack, in New York, and we've got Elvis Presley with Burner Love. We'd like to dedicate this to the girls down at the free clinic. He did not relax for 4 hours. Only loosely following the station format, he juggled flawlessly in his head commercial taglines, record titles, cues. He toyed with sponsors, weather, and traffic report. Through the show, Imus squirmed and wrestled himself into his character, his mobile mouth contorted, his hands shaking. Judge Hangin suggested a huge Grand Canyon party for troublemakers, with the Blue Angels skyriding a huge raised fist over them, and then a B-52 dropping a hydrogen bomb on them. Crazy Bob said,
Hi, boys and girls. Today's story is one I'd like to call Goldilocks and the Three Bears. But Baby Bear didn't say somebody's been sleeping in my bed, and there she is. He simply said, good night, everybody.
Finally, at 10 a.m., he hollered into the mic,
keep those cards and letters.
And this extravagant style of topical humor seems to be catching. Other jocks have begun to imitate Imus's routine, and his lines crop up at cocktail chatter. The considerable Imus charm and flair, often gentler, more persuasive, and funnier than his lines seem in print, has waked up large segments of the population who haven't listened to AM radio in years. Some people suggest he is another Jonathan Winters or Lenny Bruce. Not everybody thinks so. One girl finally had to stop listening to Imus because she said, I can't stand all that ego without any substance. Imus sat comfortably behind the wheel of his black Mark IV one afternoon on his way to a gas station in Long Island to sign autographs.
I used to dream about having a car like this,
he said.
Now I'm going to get me a Rolls Royce, a Silver Cloud. I've really got it all together now. I know what I am. I don't drink or smoke dope or screw around. I don't want nothing messing up my head. I'm too close to the line anyway.
For 2 hours, Imus stood in the sun and graciously bantered with the crowd of about 300 and signed what was ever thrust at him. A shirt, a shoe, a cantaloupe. As he drove away, he watched the crowd recede in the mirror.
I don't understand,
he said, shaking his head.
I wouldn't walk across the street to see nobody.
The kitchen of his rambling modern home in Greenwich, Connecticut was cluttered with magazines and papers. After 7 years, his marriage was in an unsettled condition, and his wife and their 4 daughters were away. He poured himself a Dr. Pepper and went out to sit on the patio.
A lot of hip people dig my act because they think I'm crazy like they are,
he said.
But my gig is really aimed at the average blue-collar working guy who can dig a guy who scratches his way up from nothing, lives in a big house and drives a Mark IV, and at the same time tells his bosses to buzz off. I got more guts than talent. Sometimes it seems strange doing my show sitting in there talking to nobody but the microphone. I guess I play to the telephones. They're my audience, and I really like to hear somebody call and say I'm doing a dynamite show. When I'm going good, those lines are lit up all the time. Of course, even when I'm not, the phones light up anyway. So I guess you never really know except inside yourself. I'm a fatalist anyway, prepared for things to fail. Knowing you can handle that gives you confidence. I knew I was going to take over New York.
Imus is 32, though he can say he is any age. He was born near Riverside, California. In their early years, he and his younger brother grew up in a wealthy home. Their father raised cattle on thousands of acres in Arizona. His parents became divorced when Imus was 15 and money became tight. When he was 17, he left high school to join the Marine Corps. He barely managed to get through boot camp, then joined the band.
I wasn't no real Marine,
he said.
I didn't want to shoot nobody.
After the Marines, he spent some years acting crazy and trying to become a rock and roll singer and songwriter. When money ran out, he worked for a time in uranium and copper mines in Arizona and pumped gas in Los Angeles. Then when he and his brother went to work as brakemen on the Southern Pacific Railroad, Imus took his step into radio.
On the way to work up in Palmdale, he recalls, I'd listen to the local station WKTY. I figured I could do as well as those guys, but I was afraid to go into the station.
He enrolled in the Don Martin Radio School in Hollywood.
I didn't get my diploma because I still owed them $500, but I had my first class FCC license. I went up to KUTY and got a job working weekends. Then the morning man skipped town and I took over in June as Captain Don for $4.25 a month.
After a year there, he was hired away by KJOY in Stockton, now calling himself Imus in the Morning. Less than a year later, he was fired for running an Eldridge Cleaver lookalike competition and for saying hell on the air.
Then I was told there was a guy in Sacramento who probably the only man in America who would hire me.
That man was Jack G. Thayer, then general manager at KXOA, who insisted Imus spend 4 or 5 hours a day at the typewriter and develop characters for his humor. In Sacramento, Imus won the 1969 Billboard Award for Top DJ in a Medium Market. Thayer moved to WGAR in Cleveland and brought Imus with him in 1970. One newspaper there called him Garbage Mouth. He was sued for slander for saying a weatherman was hitting the sauce, and he went right to the top in the rating. Won the Billboard Award for Top DJ in a Major Market, and then was hired by WNBC. Initially, the New York audience protested the intrusion of Imus, comfortably bland radio scene flooding NBC with letters and calls, but the show took hold. The ratings rose, and he was becoming a star. That led to taking his act on the road, making guest appearances. One of his biggest in this first year was a week's trip in late summer to Hollywood, where he would pass out the 1972 DJ Awards at the Billboard magazine's convention and also guest hosting a morning radio show. Imus, returning to LA as the king of the Big Apple, was on stage and under pressure all week. He did hard-driving, outrageous shows and challenged other DJs head-to-head over the air by immediately proclaiming, "I'm number one in LA." From idols, now peers or less, stopped by his hotel suite to down Chivas and the competition. Imus visited the Don Martin Radio School, where they presented him with the diploma he had earned but never paid for. In Palmdale, he called on his brother Fred, for whom he was trying to get a job as a disc jockey.
"Fred is funny as hell on the air,"
Imus said.
"Just crazy."
On the way to pick up his mother for lunch, Imus said,
"I think Mom's doing pretty well. I paid all her bills and stuff. Fred's got to get that job, even if I have to pay his salary. He's done a lot of things for me, when I didn't have any money."
His mother is a delightful woman, as wacky as her son. "Don used to call 2 or 3 times a week," she said. "Now I'm lucky if it's once in 2 weeks. He is so aloof and preoccupied these days, it's not like him."
"Hey, Mom, I'm a star,"
Imus said, chuckling.
"Didn't you hear my show today? I'm Imus in the morning."
"Yeah, well, Howard Johnson's is all about there is here," his mother said, chuckling back. "Is that okay for Imus in the morning?" Someone had organized a Whatever Happened to Don Imus dinner. Imus went to the cocktail party before the dinner and almost immediately stalked out and went back to his hotel suite fuming.
"Ain't no way I'm going to that dinner now,"
he said.
"I don't care what anybody thinks of me. First thing at the cocktail party, people started downing me, saying I was weak on the air, playing the wrong records, think it all buzz off. Hell, that really hurt."
For the Billboard Awards, Imus surprised the crowd by doing the whole ceremony as the irreverent Billy Saul Hargis. Dressed in a baggy white cowboy preacher suit, a priest's black shirt and white collar and a black hat, Reverend Billy Saul wailed his message, which happened to be offering of a special Holy Land record package for $3.98, supported by soul music and hallelujahs from a black quartet behind him. Imus passed out plaques and refused to let any of the recipients say over the microphone. As each recipient was turned away, Imus spun around to skin palms with a man in the quartet. Through all this, the audience responded, mainly with wide eyes and tentative laughter. In the dressing room to remove his sweat-drenched outfit, Imus was pleased.
"I thought it went really well. They never saw anything like this before at one of these rip-offs."
The week in LA seemed to have drained the energy from Imus. Back in New York, he dragged wearily through his shows, writing no new material. He was ornery. He refused to read the station's new slogans, refused to attend meetings. He came in late more regularly. Station manager Bascom and program manager Pat Whitley were darkly disturbed. "That he likes to ridicule authority doesn't bother me," said Whitley, a 32-year-old former DJ. "What really worries me is now the pacing of his life. He's got to take care of himself, pace himself so he can be up for his show. It's getting pretty rough." What had, in fact, set Imus apart from other boss jocks was not that he was innately more talented, but that he had, for his 4 years in the business, lived comparatively like a monk, free of the frivolities and traps of business politics, with few outside interests or friends. He had worked and got the rating. Now he was showbiz. Bascom feared that his star might not be able to handle the meteoric rise without falling apart. This is the most crucial time of his career, Bascom said. He could destroy everything right here, right now. Too much has happened to him too fast. The reason he gets away with so much on the air is that he has always been so straight off the air. But if he gets into any kind of a personal jam and blows his show, regardless of what else he thinks he was going, nobody will want to touch him. We were aware of his absences and tardiness in Cleveland, and we know it's a real hang-up. But Cleveland is not New York. I've got guts, too. We've been nice, but we will crack down, hurt him in his pocketbook if we have to. A few days later, they did. When Imus picked up his check at the studio, he exploded.
"That's it! Those creeps docked me $190. Nobody does that to me, Jack. I ain't never doing nothing for this station again. Now I ain't never gonna talk to these guys."
He seemed driven towards a climactic confrontation with his bosses. Nothing, no amount of freedom or salary or obstinance could appease him. It was an irrational, persistent challenge which may have been a simple case of swelled head, but was perhaps more sinister, self-destructive. For in rational moments, he would admit there was nothing his bosses could ever do to sate his need. He would have gone on to TV or movies or something. Already, he was preparing a TV pilot for ABC. He was writing his second comedy album. But still, the radio show remained the foundation for everything.
"Look, I've been working like hell for 5 years with no vacation,"
Imus said, calming down.
"Let's just call this last month a vacation. And now I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to start writing the best shows they have ever heard to renegotiate my contract for $300,000.
Having thus defied the challenge in his own terms, rather than the station's, Imus returned to writing his comedy sketches with renewed vigor. He packed his shows with material that brought them back to life.
I guess I really am on a star trip,
Imus said one morning.
It's really a solitary trip. It's a whole big ego thing. All I think about. People always saying things about how it changes you. Well, I don't see how I've changed much, but maybe I have.
The ratings came in from the American Research Bureau during the morning time. Since Imus arrived, WNBC had moved from 7th to 5th. In the key 18 to 34 age group, the station held second place, but its audience was up nearly 50%. In every category, ratings were up. Perry Bascom was ecstatic. Imus in the morning was cheerfully smug.
People said I couldn't bring my act to New York. Well, I've taken this town over. You know what the next step is? I'm going to take over Carson's TV show. That's right, I want Carson. I mean, that cat's days are numbered. I'm going to retire that mother to a mini Pearl chicken franchise.
He was going to have lunch with Perry Bascom.
Perry's a good guy, and my lawyer said for me to stop acting like a child. Feels good to be working again, man. Fox is calling me up and everything. Jane Fonda wants to meet me, you know.
Where'd you hear that?
Oh, I just made that up, but I'm going to start saying it on the air, and we'll see what happens.
Imus would also begin to get featured more and more as he and Wolfman Jack would host NBC's New Year's broadcast in 1973. He would also end up hosting multiple versions of the Miss Bear America contest, something we covered in Season 1 of Historically Speaking, when it was sharing the same venue as the IWA's event inside the Beacon Theater. The former being a forerunner to some of the same nude women-based stunts that Howard Stern, Opie and Anthony, and dozens of others would take and modify in the prevailing decade. But then came the blackout.
That's Cat Stevens, and we're at our transmitter site, Scott Muni, here at WNEW FM in New York, and if you are just with us, you already know what's been going on for these many hours. You know about the problems of the city, and we're back on the air, which is kind of nice, although many parts of the city do not have power at the moment. We are in a room that is one we're unaccustomed to, equipment we're unaccustomed to and all, but we will be doing music and we will be giving you information. At this moment, there is the possibility that up until midnight, many parts of the city will not be back to normal. There is a possibility we may not be with you either, because if they lose power again, we will disappear. I have a small microphone here and a small turntable and just a little setup where we are able to talk to you and tell you we are back on the air after many hours of absence. Not due to anything else other than another historical event for New York City that'll be written about and talked about, and motion pictures made about, albums, and no doubt there'll be a song. Someone right now is writing the song, or already has written it, about 12 years after the first one, here to 1977, the blackout of 77, which of course broke all the records of the previous blackout. And it is warm, and we have music for you. We are WNEW FM in New York. If you would like, I think it might be a nice idea to tell some of your friends, since we are sort of a family, if you will talk to your friends, give them a call since telephones are working, and say, NEW FM's back on the air, and we do intend to give you all sorts of news, what is going on. What's going on now is a lot of people are talking about what happened or why it happened, and why things didn't work out the way they were supposed to. At any rate, we will have music for you, and we'll do some more right now.
"1977 was a year of upheaval and chaos in New York City, not only with the fires in the Bronx, blackouts in the city, and whatever the hell the Yankees were doing, but at WNBC, where the whole staff, including Don Imus, got shit-canned. Here's where we take a pause on our story as Don Imus goes to lick his wounds in Cleveland and rebuild, while the radio scene in New York gets a brief respite from the man called Garbage Mouth. Something was on the horizon and germinating just north of New York City at a small station that incubated a ton of young talent.
Hi, I'm Howard Stern, the program director of Westchester's Rock Station. You know, it's really hard to describe what makes a radio station a success. We here at WRNW have narrowed it down to a very few special elements. First and foremost,
I want to thank my associate producer on this project, David Soberman, with some of the key research we pulled and will continue to pull on Don Imus. He's been my director with the A7FL these past few seasons, so shout out to him for joining me on this bonkers-ass side quest. Want to support what we do? Sign up now to our Patreon for just $5. That's right, only $5 at patreon.com/historicallyspeaking. Next time on Historically Speaking, with the election for a new mayor in New York City on the horizon and one of the candidates being a part of talk radio history, we're going to take a turn and walk through the history of AM talk radio and one of its loudest and most caustic humans, Bob Grant. Historically Speaking is a production of Ember Media, executive produced, hosted, and voiced written by me, Matt Ryan, and the aforementioned associate producer, David Soberman. And a shout out to our patrons. Thank you so much for being a part of our show and being the people that basically give us the opportunity to do this show every single week. I want to thank Joey Coco. I want to thank Richard Rabiner. I want to thank Olive's mom. I want to thank the Armenian Hirsute Society, David Rodriguez, Tricky Rex, and Rachel Schaefer. We'll see you next time, guys. Bye!
WMRR 168.9 FM is dedicated to community broadcasting, especially after all those lawsuits. So now here is one of our court-mandated, we mean community-minded programs, the South Brooklyn Sports Report. Welcome to the South Brooklyn Sports Report. I'm Sean Flannery Patrick Hanrahan III. This week around Brooklyn, the start of fall sports, both in high school and locally, began in earnest as the Mill Basin Football League, Flag Football League, begins this weekend, as my wife continues to remind me. So does the one here in Park Slope that I refuse to sign my boy up for. If he's going to play football, he's going to get CTE like his grandparents did. They took football out of the schools when I was a kid. A PSAL bowling began in earnest this weekend as Brooklyn Tech beat Dewey in 3 straight games. Telecommunications split a series with Midwood, and the entire Grady team quit immediately upon realizing it was actual bowling and not lawn bowling, to the confusion of all involved. And finally, a 5th member of the Park Slope Bocce Ball League has been reported missing just over a month after new president of the league and noted quote-unquote family influencer Grace Yen McDonough took over the league in what many described as the Tiger Mom version of a beer hall pushed, since moving into the neighborhood from her native Keensburg last fall. Yen McDonough, who has 1.5 million followers on that TikTok thing, decided to take over the league following her husband Ronald's fondness for the sport and Italian culture. Well, so he claims. Like, I've only seen him drive a Vespa and claim it's him, quote-unquote, tapping into his heritage. His last name is Scottish, and he is from New Jersey, but either way, Yen McDonough's rise to power came and kind of coincided with 5 members, including the president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, and someone who showed up to like 3 meetings, going missing. We spoke to a member of the community who's very wary and demanded their voice be altered out of fear of reprisal.
This lady is crazy. She threatened my husband with a bocce ball because he looked at her husband funny for driving a Vespa. Onto the bocce court like he's a GTA character or Kramer from Seinfeld.
Both Yen McDonough and her husband, noted Twitch streamer and self-described Italian cultural enthusiast Colpin McDonough, his name is Colpin, have not commented. More on this story as it develops, unless that crazy lady gets us next. This has been your South Brooklyn Sports Report for this week. Now back to the pipe bomb and the loose cannon in the morning here on WMRR 168.9 FM.
What do you mean I can't insult that lady? She's a lunatic.